No. Or the saw, running the saw and the dust flying everywhere. So, hey, busy over there. So while we're going, I do want you to pay mind to this one verse tonight, that the body without the spirit is dead. So faith without works is dead. Just remember that as it says in James 2:26, that as the body without the spirit is dead, so is the faith without works. So let me first give you a word. Let's look at this word first. So if we look at this word, hey, Ginger. If we look at this word first, and in itself, we want to iterate for just a moment, and in this definition, that the word responsibility tells us that it's heavy responsibilities when we look at this in plural form. And then the ability to answer in payment or means of paying contracts. Now, that's the first word I'm going to give you. What does the word abound mean? Abounding. What does that word mean?
Flourishing.
Huh?
Flourishing.
Flourishing. Okay, what else? What does the word abounding mean? We got, Wilma says flourishing. What other word we got? Huh? Okay. So first we see our responsibility. And then we go to looking at, now this is all sourced from our Bible dictionary, is the definition of the word abounding. Meaning having in great plenty, being in great plenty, being very prevalent and generally prevailing, as well as an increase. Now just remember these two words as we look at some stuff tonight. When we look at some different things we're going to study on some things that we're going to touch on tonight. Now, this direction has got a lot to do with our learning and of what we are taking in as far as knowledge about heaven, but it also drives us about some current happenings that we deal with as well as in our own lives. So let's start with a couple verses in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Yes. I don't know where they done it. What'd you do with it? Can't use it. We'll pass it on. If not, I'll print some. In 1 Corinthians chapter 3, for other foundation can no man lay that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if any man build upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire. And the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. And if any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss. But he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. In verse 13, what does the word manifest mean? Bring it to what? Okay, what else? Okay, to be made known. What else? If I pull straight from the Bible dictionary, is plain, open, clearly visible to the eye, or obvious to understanding, apparent. It's not obscured or difficult to be seen or understood. So we look at some things tonight, and I want to ask you a question for just a moment. I want you to think about this. Now, you're allowed, anybody in the room that wants to openly answer this question is allowed to, but you don't have to. But in the last 24 hours, between 7 p.m. yesterday and 7 p.m. today, how many people did you tell about Jesus? Zero. I've got a zero. Anybody else in the room got a number they want to tell? How many in 24 hours have you told about Jesus? Well, it may not be in that way, but, you know. Did you quote Bible in there anywhere? No? Okay. All right. In the last 7 days, how many people do you think off the top of your head you have talked in conversation with about Jesus in 7 days? How many?
1 or 2.
1 or 2? Okay. Anybody else got 1 or 2? All right. Okay. Okay. And what about in the last 30 days? Some, yes. Now, let me say this, because I can use this as an aim. Exposure is a lot of this number that we're looking at. We'll see some reasons why I'm asking here in a few minutes. Robert and Roger building houses don't really see anybody other than who they're in directly related contact with about building the house or the suppliers or so on. Whereas me or Steve or somebody that's dealing with public flow, Courtney's at the pharmacy, there's a constant roll of people somewhere all the time, random faces constantly somewhere. So some of that is accounted to exposure. But by these verses, and I'm going to start with this, 1 Corinthians 3, by these verses, your works, by the Bible, is going to be made manifest, because it says every man's work is going to be made manifest. For the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and it shall be tried by every man's work, what sort it is. When we purify gold or other metals, we do that with extreme amounts of heat. The Bible even talks about this. And so we heat up metals like gold and so forth to extreme amounts of heat. For what reason? To get rid of all the bad. Whatever's messed up in there, bad particles, we get rid of it by heating it up and seeing if it's really good or if it's not really good. And if it's not really good, guess what? There won't be none left when the fire's over with. There won't be no gold left when the fire's tried. So if we did this as in life and we look at this, we got to look at, and we're building all on our works. We're talking about works tonight. If what we did in this life was not what Jesus commanded, we would be saved as only one escaping the flames. But our works would be burned up like wood, hay, and stubble. Therefore, we are looking at some things we're going to look at tonight. And let's go to a very famous part of the Bible in Ezekiel 33, chapter 33. I want to look at a few verses. I'm going to ask Roger to read in Ezekiel chapter 33. He's going to find it right quick. And Ezekiel chapter 33, we're going to read the first 9 verses in Ezekiel 33.
Ready?
Yep.
Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, speak to the children of thy people, and say unto them, When I bring the sword upon a land, if the people of the land take a man of their coast, and set him for their watchman, if when he seeth the sword come upon the land, he blow the trumpet and warn the people. Then whosoever beareth the sound of the trumpet, and taketh not warning, if the sword come and take him away, his blood shall be upon his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet, and took not warning, his blood shall be upon him. But he that taketh warning shall deliver his soul. But if the watchman see the sword coming, and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take away it, and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity. But his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman upon the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word at my mouth, and warn them from me. When I say unto the wicked, O wicked man, thou shalt surely die, if thou dost not speak to warn the wicked from his way, that wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thine hand. Nevertheless, if thou warn the wicked of his way to turn from it, if he do not turn from it, he shall die in his iniquity, but thou shalt deliver thy soul.
God commanded Ezekiel to be a spiritual watchman over the people of Israel. And God said that if he was faithful to warn the people of the judgment to come, then the blood of those people would not be on his hands. However, if he failed to do that and failed to warn them, then what would happen?
Blood be upon him.
Okay. And if we back up to Ezekiel chapter 3, verses 17 and 18, it says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. When I say unto the wicked, Thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thine hand. We see all these places of where that there is a level of responsibility on people to warn the wicked of those who are living in sin of where they're going. Now, in the book of Acts, let me give you this one, Acts 20. Paul cleared it off the shelf right here in Acts 20 when he said, Wherefore I take you to record this day that I am pure from the blood of all them. For I have not shunned to declare unto you all the counsel of God. Here's the thing. When we look at our job, now, you say you're saved, and I say it that way because I don't know. I can't say anybody in this room is saved but me. I can't tell none of you you're going to make it through those gates. Steve sitting right over there, he can't tell you you're going to make it through those gates. It's not ours to say. It's yours. But your responsibility until you leave this earth is named in the book. And Paul made it clear in this part of Acts 20 that he did not want to take any efforts to say that he shunned from telling them of the Word of God for the blood to be on his hands. He wasn't going to have it, to have the blood on his hands, to be lacking in bringing up or telling them the Word of God. And there's a quote that is very good. I wrote this down. We know exactly what needs to be done to advance the gospel and to fulfill the Great Commission. But the question is, who will do it? That comes to this question, who will do it? Hell is enlarging its borders how often? And why is that?
People die here and there.
Their hearts wax cold, they live in sin. Sin is just abounding everywhere. It's just increasing daily, and it's enlarging its borders daily. What affects the borders of heaven? What affects how big heaven is? How many goes? What affects that? What do y'all think? What affects how many's going to heaven?
Heaven's big enough for everyone.
It is. It'll fit whosoever. But what affects how many are going to get there?
Believers.
Okay, you're on the right track. Keep going.
Saved.
You're on the right track. Keep going. What affects how many are going to get there?
How many accept the word or accept Jesus?
Okay, so they have to hear it.
Be told.
And how can they hear? Right?
Word.
Okay. So we get down to this point that we are part of the growing factor for heaven. Is that not true? What other advertising method is there that the Lord has other than the people sitting on this earth? What other way does the Lord have for someone to be saved other than you that is going to heaven? Anybody know of one? No. So we've got some responsibility in tying to that we're going and say that we're going to heaven. And here's where we go into 1 Corinthians 15. Here you go. You already know this verse. It's so famous, except now it's just took a turn, and its meaning is now dove a deeper dive. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. So, first responsibilities that we have is to stand firm in the faith. The first thing that we have to do is be steadfast and unmovable. But then we come into the next word. What is the next word? Always. And what did we say the definition of the word abounding was?
Increase.
Do what?
Increase.
Yeah, flourishing. That's what I think Wilma said. So another word of abounding is having in great plenty, being very prevalent and increasing. And our commandment in this verse is always, always abounding in the work of the Lord. So when we look at just exactly what our responsibilities really are, it's your job as a Christian to be telling others how to get there. They have no other. Can you go out here anywhere in Harrogate and get a road map? I haven't tried it in a while, but I did one time a couple years ago. Anywhere you all know in Harrogate, you can go right now and buy a road map. They're in open. Yeah, right now. Yeah, most of us have them. Some of them. Yeah, so maybe a gas station may have a map. A couple years ago, I just randomly glanced at like the dollar store and different places, and I didn't see nothing. Now, how many places can you go right now in Harrogate at 7:30 and buy a Bible?
The Dollar Tree, Walmart.
In Harrogate.
Oh, no, in here. Walmart.
Ain't no Walmart in Harrogate, Brenda.
Oh, okay. I said Tennessee, there is a Tesla.
Where can you go in Harrogate and buy a Bible?
General Dollar.
Okay. Our Dollar General here hasn't had any in a little while. They do randomly have some books and stuff, and sometimes they'll have them, sometimes they don't. I don't know if it's just a random thing they get. But that's one of the things that we get into is first, you can't even buy maps no more. You can't buy a Bible. How do you expect anybody to get to where you want them to be if you're really wanting somebody to be in heaven when you die? And we've talked about this in previous weeks, that you want your life insurance to pay your funeral and your burial and all you know, if Brenda buys her a jet ski at 95 years old, she wants to make sure they'll pay for it if you don't pay it off. But you want all that done. And then comes this concerning thought of, well, what if so-and-so ain't going? Or what if so-and-so don't, I don't know if so-and-so's going or if they even know anything about it. How many people are we coming in contact with on a regular basis that you say nothing about the Bible, about the Lord, about going to heaven? Is there a reason to be afraid? This is the part that confuses me. Steve's here, he'll tell you, it's a very different, fearful thing to have to get in a pulpit. But there's no fear in telling you what the Word says. There's no fear in telling you what the Lord has done, can do, will do, or where I'm going when I leave this earth. No fear in that at all. If you're afraid to tell somebody what's going to happen to you when you die, how are you going to get me to believe you're going to get there? I've always wondered, if you're afraid to tell anybody about you're going to heaven, how are you going to get the Christians to believe you've got it? Because what are we not supposed to fear? Death. We're not supposed to fear death. So we see all these things. Let's go to Ephesians 1. In whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace, wherein he hath abounded toward us in all wisdom and prudence, having made known unto us the mystery of his will according to his good pleasure, which he hath purposed in himself. He has already provided for us who deserve nothing. We got to get that in our mind, that God has already provided for us who we deserved nothing from him. Why do we not deserve or should be deserving to give abundantly our service to him? You think about a marketing schematic. If you worked for a marketing team or a marketing job, how do you get paid? You sales. A salesman gets paid based off sales. He's either going to get good at it or he's going to starve. That's the only way it's going to go. Well, in reality, and not saying anything negative about us and where we are, but in reality, heaven's census is the same basis. If we ain't telling nobody, how many more you think's going to get there? You think about that. Now, there's people that never go in the doors of this church or some churches or any church that people in the church are in contact with regularly. At work, at home, family gatherings, whatever's house, something like that, all the time. But then we get to thinking about, so I am saying that I'm going, and I want everybody to go with me, but I don't tell nobody that. Or I say nothing to nobody that I'm concerned about whether or not they're going to be there when they die, or when I die, they'll be there later, whenever that happens in whatever order. So then we go on, and we're talking about our works. Revelation 22. Behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man, here it is, according as what? As his work shall be. Our work for the Lord, if it's truly for Him and done in His power, cannot fail to accomplish what He wants accomplished. And we see in Colossians 3 that whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord Christ. But he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he hath done. And there is no respect of persons. Anybody ever heard that before? That's pretty familiar, ain't it? Who is exempt from the responsibilities of a testimony? Anybody you know of? No? Okay. So we look at it this way. If there was a drug invented, a medicine invented, that could heal any problem. It could heal Tony's back problem because she likes to get wild and dance all over the house, and then the vacuum cleaner fights with her and she can't walk the next day. Cancer, all these medical problems that we've got all over the earth right now that there is no cure for. If we had the cure, the one thing that would work and it will do it, we had it. And not one advertisement was given out or said about it. Where would we be? What would be happening to everybody? They'd be dying. If nobody told anybody, hey, we got something that works. We've got something that will take care of you. It will help you. It will heal you. It will do more than you can get in any other thing you find. We've got it. What do you think people's going to have the attitude for? You're going to have the same thing with this as you do in the Christian world. You got skeptics that says, I don't know about that. Have you tried it on anybody yet? Yeah. Then they want to know what's the price tag. They do. They're looking into it. They're skeptics. There's others that says, I'm in. There's no other way out of this. There's no hope. I'm in. But we all are afraid of something that's costing more than you'll ever imagine. And we're going to see this tonight as we're looking at some things in heaven. One of the worst problems we've got is this word right here. When we sit down and have a conversation with somebody about anything to do with the Bible, with to do about heaven, with to do about anything. Has anybody ever heard of the Chinese guy called Zhejiang? He's some of Ginger's family, I believe, but I'm not going to say.
Distant cousin.
Distant cousin. See, I knew it. I just didn't know where. So, let me show you this. Zhejiang. I'm going to read what he did. He feared rejection so much that it consumed his life. He decided to face his fear with an experiment. For 100 days in a row, he chose to be rejected in a different way every day. He asked a stranger for $100. Then he asked another stranger to let him plant a flower in his backyard. He requested a burger refill instead of a soda refill at a hamburger joint. He got a no, and a no. But he quickly learned something. The more he was rejected, the more he realized that rejection wasn't as bad as he was afraid of. He also learned from each encounter about people and himself. So one day he asked a lady at Krispy Kreme Donuts to make a donut shaped and colored like the Olympic rings. And remarkably, she said, why not? So the video of her creation went viral, reaching over 5 million views online, and his experiment soon made him a leading example, delivering and writing a book on this experiment that brought him into dealing with rejection. He realized the more he faced it, the less he was afraid of it. Now, I'll tell you an example. Ginger's in here. She's worked in the hospital. She'll tell you this. People are phobic of needles. Okay? Anybody here don't like a needle? Brandon does. So, could you imagine one of two things? Now, think about this. Today, you all get diagnosed as a diabetic. And you learn that you're going to stab your finger with a needle 3 times a day. It's life. You have to do it 3 times a day. And if it's too high, you get another needle when you draw up a shot. And guess what you're going to do with that needle? Go ahead and tell them, Ginger. What are they going to do with that needle for the insulin? Yeah, and where do they put it?
Well, they can put it in the leg.
The leg, the arm, or the belly. Now, can you take a needle and stick it inside of your belly? Can you do it? I can, ain't no problem. I've done it thousands of times. But for most people, the first time you try to do that, your brain will tell you no. As soon as, huh?
Pain.
Yeah, your brain says you're not sticking yourself with no needle. You're not going to do that. I bet you I know people that had to start taking insulin shots that says that they've sat in the living room sweating for 30 minutes looking at it on the coffee table, just scared to death to do it. And then after they've done it, they're like, well, that wasn't what I thought that was going to be. That's what they get into dealing with when we get to the question. So I'm going to ask you all a question for just a moment, and this is the number one problem that we've got with not telling somebody about heaven, how to get there, how you're going to get there, what made the way for you to be able to go. And this question is this thing right here. I want you to tell me and what comes to your mind that you're really afraid of when sitting down. Put that in a letter and put it on the altar and we'll pray over it. But think about this for a minute. What are you really afraid of? Now, when we think about that, it's the biggest thing anybody says they're afraid of is rejection. That's one of the things. They don't know what to say or how to say it. That's another one. They're going to be ostracized. Anybody know what that word means? Okay. That means, oh, there comes one of them. Oh no, there he is again. He's coming back. No matter what they are, we are not fulfilling the command. And he told Peter this, sitting on the side of the water's edge. He asked Peter a question. Anybody know what the question was in the Bible? He asked him 3 times. And what did he say the first time? And what did he say the second time? Feed the lambs. And what was the third one? Feed my sheep. Yeah. Commandment to fulfill, to abound in the work of the Lord. He told Peter that. It didn't exempt anybody else from that, but he did tell Peter that. And so when we look at these things, we find this problem right here in Mark 8, that when the Lord began to teach them, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of the elders and of the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he spake that saying openly. And Peter took him and began to rebuke him. He was one of the Baptists, missionary Baptists, that said, preacher, don't preach it that hard. Okay? They won't come back if you do that. They'll get so mad at you, they'll never show back up. Preacher, don't do that. Don't stand there in front of the elders, the chief priests, the scribes, and say that I'm going to be killed and rise again. Don't do that. I'm going to rebuke you for that. But when he looked and turned around and looked on his disciples, and he rebuked Peter right in front of them, he said, you get behind me, Satan. For thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. It's so easy to sit at that table and gossip. It's so easy to sit at that table and Roger talk about eating ribs at the Green Tomato. It is like no effort at all to talk about something that you really like to talk about. But to shell the corn at the table about how to get to heaven, we hit a roadblock. We want to soften the offense. Paul wrote that the gospel was made an offense for who? The gospel was made an offense for who? All the unbelievers. It's offensive to them to learn that their way and their opinion and the way they want to do things and how they want to live won't work. That's offending to them. It's an offense. The gospel is an offense to anybody that doesn't line up with it, no matter who it is and what it says. It's offending to them. So just like Peter here, Peter became one of those that said, now, Lord, don't talk like that in front of them. You're going to get things stirred up so bad, they'll never, no, don't do that. But he turned right around in front of all, and he told Peter, you get behind me. You get behind me. I'm not going with your route of rebuking, and let's take the easy road. So one of our biggest problems that we get into with our fears of being rejected is knowing what to say. So some people don't feel like that they know that they don't feel like they know their beliefs enough, or they don't know the Bible enough to say anything to somebody else. Anybody feel that way? That's a common thing. That's a common thing that happens. But I want to ask a question. I've looked through the Bible this week and I've screwed around with this about, is there anywhere in the Bible that says how much knowledge you have to tell somebody? Is it in there anywhere? Anybody know that? Does it tell you of any certain amount of education you have to have? Do you have to have a doctorate degree in Bible theology? Do you have to have an associate? There's nowhere in there that says that. Okay? And then we go on one more thing with the problem. Guess whose standards sets that in your head that you don't know enough about the Bible? Your own. The world gets you to believe that. If they can twist you around a little bit and question something you're saying, whether you know it good enough or not to quote it, they'll use that. That is the world standards right there to see how much knowledge you have, than to whether or not you're willing to open your mouth. Two different things right there. Nowhere are we told that an effective witness must be any type of specific level of education. Although we want to be able to do it to the best of our ability, here's where the catch comes in. Right here's the roadblock, is that 1 Peter 3 and 15 tells us that we are to always give an account for what? Of the hope that lies within you. Always. You're always supposed to be ready to give that account. And then Romans 1:16 is the very famous verse that Paul wrote. He says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God unto salvation. Okay. Well, if you won't speak of him, he is going to be what? Ashamed of you. That's what the Bible says. If you're ashamed of me, I am ashamed of you. So when it comes to some things, you think about this for a moment. Is it worth losing your friend or some type of relationship with a friend, family member, or something else over the fact of not telling them how to get there? If Tony and Rick tomorrow gets that bathtub done, that shower, and then next Monday decides to sell the house because they don't want to look at it no more, there's too much work, and they don't tell us nobody where they went, how are we ever going to find how to find them? If they don't give us their address, how will we ever know where they're at? If you don't tell us, Rick's not telling, but if you don't tell it, we're not going to know. The things that we cannot control, I want you to think about this for a moment, and it's no different in your seat as it is if someone's preaching in the pulpit. This is how equal this works about presenting the word to somebody or preaching it, is that you can control how you present it and you can control what you present, but you cannot control what they do. Can the pastor control anything anybody does in the congregation from a message he preaches? If someone comes to the altar, if someone gets mad and is offended because they didn't like what the Bible said about that, or any other reason, you think about that for a moment, is that we can control how we present it to them, but we can't control how they respond. It's not my problem how they respond. If I'm doing my job in presenting them the gospel, it is an offense to everyone that does not believe, and we see that always. We don't want to share things in anger. We know this. We don't want to share things in some type of forceful way of effort, but we go to how well this should be done. And I pulled this very story from John 4. I'm using familiar verses tonight that we've got. So here's one thing for you to see. Fear doesn't control us by dominating our emotions. It controls us by quietly convincing us that our comfort is more important than happiness. The only real risk is taking none. And the only real failure is not having it. So it's worse to not know if someone's going to heaven than to fail at trying to witness to somebody. How many people rejected the Lord standing on the earth, performing the miracles right in front of them? Thomas, one of his own, stood there after he done rose and come back and said, I ain't believing it until I can touch it. The wounds, his side, I will not believe. That's what he said. His own, very own, said the same thing. You can't expect that. Now, look at John 4 for just a second. The woman at the well. Here's your story. The woman at the well, y'all know this. Here's what I like about this verse I started with on 28. The woman then left her water pot, and went her way into the city, and said to them, Come, see a man, which told me all things that I ever did. Is not this the Christ? Then they went out of the city, and came unto him. See how easy it would have been for her just to went on her merry little routine, and kept getting her water, and take it back to the house, and mind her merry own business, and do nothing about her works, always abounding in the works of the Lord. And she could have just known everything the Lord just revealed to her. And she could have, her natural way, she could have just said, I'm not saying nothing about this to nobody. They're going to think I'm crazy. Robert, they're not going to believe that. They're not going to believe a word of this. But the Bible records in the book of John that she left the water pot and went her way to the city and told them. How much we don't tell. As Ezekiel 33 tells us, as much as you don't tell, you are the watchman. If there's no better way for me to put it, it ain't the preacher's job to be 24/7 watchman when everybody in the house is commanded to go and tell. Is that not what we're commanded to do? That we're going to tell. So when we look at some things, I wanted to show you a few statistical information that's pulled. Lifeway pulled this information in the last 2 or 3 years that I thought was interesting. Here's one in April 2022, conducted by Lifeway Research, found that less than half of self-identified Christians have, at least once in the past 6 months, shared a Bible verse or Bible story with a non-Christian loved one, invited a non-Christian friend or family member to attend a church service or other program at church, or shared with a non-Christian loved one how to become a Christian. And the same study also identified that 2 in 3 Christians agree sharing with a non-believer how they can become a Christian is the most loving thing that they can do. Well, one of the best things I've read about that is that here's what the lost people, this is the people who get saved in the year range of 2021 to 2024. Do you know what they said when they were asked about how much people witnessed to them? You know what their answer was? Now I'm talking adults that got saved in churches. Their answer was that they were more amazed at our silence than being offended by our message. They were more amazed at the amount of silence of the Christians and what they have to tell than the message offending them by telling them the truth. Now here you go. In 2021, another study showed that most Christians agree it's their calling to share their beliefs, but that it's their minister's duty to equip them to do so. 7 in 10 Christians, 69%, said it's every Christian's responsibility to encourage non-Christians to trust Jesus Christ as their Savior. Similarly, 68% agree it's the minister's responsibility to equip the congregation to share the gospel. Well, the Bible that I read says to study to show thyself approved. It don't say the minister shall set you into a set amount of educational standards to prepare you to go. That didn't come from that. Do you get any different information provided to you that he don't have or that he has that you don't get? Is anybody's Bible in here different than mine? No? Well, then you got the same thing I do. So this is the outlook of people and what they think about their responsibility. And the last one I'll show you is 75% of churches said they rarely emphasize talking about their faith with those who aren't part of the church or believers. And a 19th survey revealed that less than half of the churches offered any type of training program that put into the rollers, the wheels, the eyes, the perspective of what this really means. And right here's what's interesting. Only 23% of the people say that they are ready to tell somebody. Now, there's others that are ready to share basic steps, or they may know the essentials, but they're not ready to put it into words, or they're not sure what to share or where to start. But only 23% are ready. Well, that brings me to the question of how many are going? If we say we're going to heaven, are you sure? You must be sure that you're going. But then as much as you know that you're sure you're going, You got to know that you are commanded by the Lord as to be, your testimony, as I call it, is the billboard. So we go back to that question of in a 24-hour, 7-day, 30-day, even a year period of time, how many people have you really sat down and tried to have a conversation in some way, form, shape, or fashion about the Bible, about how to get to heaven? Now, I'm going to use Rick as an example. He's sitting here. He's got a brother that he talks to all the time. And no matter how his brother responds to him, his duty is to share the good news. If he rejects that, being the watchman by the Bible, God told us that if I do not err out of my way to fail from sharing the gospel, whose blood is it on? Huh? Whoever rejects it. It's not on me. Paul said, I'm clearing the record right here that I'm not shunned from declaring the counsel of God to you, that you be always abounding in your works of the Lord. But how often you think about that it is so easy to just talk about where we've ate, or talk about what neighbors are doing, or when we've mowed the grass. That's just common conversation. It's easy. The weather, anything to talk about. But why are we afraid? And what is it that we are afraid of to speak anything out of the book of life? And when we look at those verses, that's one of the things that comes to my mind is that all of the life, and that's the reason for the verse. We go back to the beginning. The body without the spirit is dead. Well, in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, he created the heavens and the earth, and he formed the body out of the dust of the ground. And then man became a what? Living soul. For the body without the spirit is dead. Faith without works is dead. It is of no use to the kingdom of God. It is of no use to your family, your friends, your neighbors, or loved ones that you be silent on the matter. If the Lord had went on when Peter rebuked him and said, okay, I'll soften it down. Robert, I'll touch up a little bit. I won't be so hard on them about that they're going to be the reason I get killed and put on a cross and die, and 3 days later come back. I'm going to just lighten that up. If he done that, you think about the difference in the message from what it really was, than to look at Peter and say, you get behind me. You get behind me. You think about that. If we are standing firm on our foundation, and we go back to our very first verse here that said, for no other foundation can no man lay that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. If any man build upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hair, stubble, it shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire. If what we're doing is pure, holy, acceptable, steadfast, unmovable, the works of the Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit are, we know all those things, and not the lust of the flesh. If we are doing those things, when the fire reveals just exactly what we're made of, they're going to say, oh, he's been working on these people. They may not believe in what he says. They may reject what he tells them, but he's telling them he's abounding in his works. When it comes down to being tried by fire, he's making sure that it's not on his hands, that they did not know, because it's going to be offensive to anybody. Did any of you find a great amount of joy to find out that you were dying and go to hell? Anybody just enjoy loving that at any moment? Was there anybody in the room that just loved so much to hear the preacher say, you are going to die and split hell wide open? No. It's an offense to every unbeliever. So when we sit tonight, you think about that. Just what are you really afraid of? What is it that really stops you and keeps you? And the real thing that most people are saying is they're afraid of losing that relationship, that friendship, that communication, maybe, camaraderie, whatever, camaraderie with people. They're afraid of that. But is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? Are you risking keeping the friendship over somebody going to hell? Now, you got to measure things up. That's real life. If you're going and you want everybody else to go, then maybe we should work like that. That's the way it should be. If Rick and Roger worked at Ford and GM, and they say, you all have production you had to meet? Yeah? What happened if you didn't meet production? You stayed over. Yeah. I mean, there's responsibilities in anything you do, but people forget that we are responsible. We are responsible for everybody that we were given the God-led opportunity. Let me clarify that. When God leads you to go talk to somebody and you don't, you're the watchman. It's on your hands. It's on your hands. And that's exactly what he said in Ezekiel when he told him. When the trumpet sounds, if you don't warn them, it's on you. If you don't warn them of the judgment, first it's appointed unto man unto die. And then, same as Ezekiel, then the judgment. If we don't tell them, how will they ever know how to get there? You think they're going to just voluntarily go buy one of these, pick it up, and read it? You think they will? Very few might. Very few might. Most won't even pay $1 at the Dollar Tree to get one. They wouldn't do it. But how much do they pay attention to what you do, what you say, how you act, everything that you do? Anybody else got something to add to tonight? Anybody?
Like what you said, just started the last thing you said. What you do, what you say, where you go, what you do. Speaks louder than all things, testimony to you give birth.
Mm-hmm.
Like that verse says, sanctify the Lord God in your hearts and be ready always to give an answer to every man that may ask you the reason of the hope that's in you.
Mm-hmm.
Meekness of Peter. And St. Peter, 4th chapter, it says, "Must then as Christ has suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind. Be ye, for he that has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, that he no longer should live the rest of his time and to live in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of God. For the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles when we walked in mischievous lust, excessive wine, revelings, banquetings, and abominable idolatries, wherein they think extreme that you run not with them in the same excess of riot, speaking evil." That's what the biggest problem with people who testify is. Their life they're living is testifying of something else.
Mm-hmm.
And people, the biggest influence you can have is what you live in front of somebody.
Right.
Because it speaks volumes more than what you can say. And then when they come and ask you, because like I say, they're watching, and they're looking.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll come and ask you, and you be ready always, but you gotta sanctify yourself. And yield yourself to the members of righteousness as you once did unto unrighteousness.
Mm-hmm.
We're to yield it over to righteousness. I say, the Christian world nowadays, the sinner looks up and says, I'm the same, I don't see no difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we're on the same path.
Yeah.
And
I do just as good as they do. Yeah. James chapter 1 says that you are to be doers of the word and not what? Hearers only. Because if you only hear it, you've deceived yourself. That's it. If you're a hearer and not a doer, you've deceived yourself. You're looking at yourself in the mirror. But you've deceived yourself in the whole works of what we know and what we live. But you think about it, when we look at, and we'll call it evangelism or witnessing to people, you know, I don't really ever say that it's upon you to stand at Walmart and find every walking human and try to put down their throat your beliefs. That's not what I'm saying. But if there's people you're in regular contact with, there should be some shape, form, or fashion of conversation, something to light, that tells them where you're going. They got to know your address of where you're going to be when you leave this earth and how to get there. They've got to know. But if we don't tell them, and you think about it right now, and I just had this in my mind, we go back to 50, 60 years ago when people can tell you, I can bring my grandmother out here right now, Brenda's aunt, and she will tell you names of people that she knew growing up that she could hear praying across the ridge in a hillside before going to church at a revival. Praying on a regular work, not revival, let's back up. She could tell you names of who she could hear praying across the ridge line in the trees, and it wasn't a church day. But she could hear them plumb out in the barn or somewhere else praying. She could hear that. How many people do you think was going to heaven then compared to now? What do you think?
My dad said that there's a member of the church who says that you never heard much out of him in the church. He went, the man speak, he was kind of, he just couldn't speak up. But he said the life that he lived 7 days a week
Told it all.
told it all. And he says when he died, he missed him more than a lot of people that was in the church.
Yeah.
You know, better than thou. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
But he lived it, like I said, it said he lived it for seven days a week.
Yeah.
He was the same on Sundays he was the rest of the week.
Week.
But so many people, like I say, nowadays, you don't know if they're Christian or not. And
Uh-uh.
then you go up and ask them, you know, like say testify, you go up and say, can I tell you about Jesus? Oh yeah, I know all about Jesus, yeah, I belong to a certain church. You throw it back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got another easy example. Let me give y'all a real easy example. Bible school. How much trouble you think it was for any of the kids on different nights they gave their testimony? Every night of Bible school we had one or two or however many, and there was a couple nights some wanted to do it, and we added them to whoever we asked. But did you see any hard lock up on them to get up and tell you about when they got saved? Now, how easy you think it was for us to get adults to do it? How easy you think it was? Ginger was first night, I think. I think he was the first night, yeah. But when I went over and asked Ginger, and I'll tell on her a little bit, when I went over and asked Ginger, she didn't say no. She just made a face. And then after she made the face, she said, yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. I mean, you're sitting in your church where you go under the roof, and you know why we're here in the mission, and that's what she first made this face like. Did what? She did. And then after that, she said, yeah, I'll do it. But it's easy for the little ones. If you ever notice, Callie, these different ones that got up and testified through the week, they really didn't have no hesitation. They come on up, grab the mic, told when they got saved. But those of us that are supposed to be the elders, as I'll call it, the true billboard of going, so to say, you should be seasoned. Let's use that word. Why are we afraid? What are we afraid of? That's what holds the church back, is that fear. The devil's got us on hold, and he's got a hold on the gates of what I say, the growing of heaven, by holding somebody from speaking or saying something or doing something. And Steve sometimes has done it in the church service. Here I use this as an example because we go here, but in the church service, Steve will get up and say, has anybody got anything they need to do? Well, it's obvious to me if he's up there standing up there saying that, what do you all think the truth really is? Somebody's got something they need to do. But guess why they don't do it? They're afraid. They're afraid. And when you look back at it, they regret it, thinking, well, what was there to be afraid of? I know all these people. I go to church with them 52 weeks a year. I'm here multiple times with them. I'm sitting in this class on Friday night laughing with them. What is there to be afraid of if they're going to be sitting in the same place I'm going? You know, what is the reason behind that? But when we get to the reality, the scary topic is in 2024 compared to 50 years ago, how many of you think is going in the gates now? What do you think? What you thought on that? Huh?
A lot less.
I think the number's a lot thinner than it used to be. It's getting a lot more narrow as it goes. As we get down to the end of time, and time can end any moment. But the longer we go and not tarry, we find that number thinning, because hell is enlarging its borders. And part of the reason why, we ain't telling them. We ain't telling them. We ain't telling them. Jehovah's Witness, they've got a hard belief of going, them the Mormons. What do they do? They go all over door to door. Mormons come from Colorado and go out through here door to door and don't know nobody. I don't know if y'all remember that time they come to the old church. Y'all remember that a long time ago when the Mormons used to come? They come into service one night, sat in the back pew, and they wanted to talk to Tip. And he told them, Tip Moore, he told them, come on back there and have a cup of coffee with him. He said, never mind, y'all can't have caffeine. And then he asked them where their car was. He said, never mind, y'all don't drive. You got to have your bikes. You know, he went down that list of all these earthly things that their belief had. But they sat in the back that night at church down here in the old building once. I remember there was 3 boys, white shirts, black pants. And there were the Mormons. They come in the church and sat back there the whole time, but they wanted to talk to Tip after it was over. And he was trying to get them to go back there and drink a cup of coffee. I think he was breaking their religion in the first 5 minutes. But why are we so afraid? You know, some people, when they knock on the door, they duck down low on the couch and hope they don't see them through the window. They're hiding from it. You know, if it's Rick and Tony, If it's Rick and Tony, they hit the button on that recliner and just lay it down so they don't have to answer the door. But really and truthfully, what is there to be afraid of? You know where the mailman goes? But you think, what are we really afraid of? They're in the same boat you are when you share something with somebody else. You either accept it or you reject it. But they can't control what you do. They only control how they present it and how they deliver it. But they can't do nothing about what you do. And if you notice, when they're done with your door, going to the next one. And if you don't answer, they're going to the next one. If you talk to them for an hour, they're still going to the next one. And they go on. But our problem with rejection and the fear of it is that we learn after a little bit of being rejected that it's not as bad as we thought it was. Is it really that bad to say, hey, when you die, if you don't know the Lord, you're going to hell? And they say, okay. And they walk off. The Lord watched it in front of his very own eyes. But when you go home and lay your bed down that night, you ain't got the thought of, I didn't tell him. I didn't say nothing to him, and I had him right in my front door, right at my house, right in front of me. I could have said something. So we got to marinate that in, that our link, we talked about 2 weeks ago that we don't use all our benefits from heaven. The rich man laid in hell, and he begged Abraham to send somebody to his brothers to do what? What if you were one of the ones sent to warn them? And you say, I can't do that. Well, Lord, I can't do that. Robert, I don't know that. Lord, I know there ain't no way I can do that. That brings me always to the question of saying, well, are you going? Are you really going? If you don't, if you can't say nothing but your testimony, if you can't do that, there is a problem. That, to me, there is a problem. Anybody else got something to add tonight?
Teaching about being afraid to go, and you talked earlier about, is there anything in the Bible that says that we need to have any type of education or anything like that? And the Lord sent the 12 out. He had just sent them together. He sent them out, and he told them that they had everything that they needed.
Mm-hmm. Equipped.
And so he began to tell them, you don't need the things that you think you need. Don't take no shoes, no coat, no strip, no silver in your purse.
Yep.
Take none of these things.
Yep.
And he told them, said, go out, heal the sick, the lepers, all this. And when he sent them out, he said, you're going to be confronted for it when they deliver you up. He said, an hour, take no thought what you're going to say. He said, for it ain't you that speak. I'll read these 2 verses what he said. He said, when they deliver you up, take no thought about what you shall speak, for it shall be given you in that hour, same hour what you shall speak. For it is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. So that tells me that we've been given everything we need of the Holy Spirit to be the witness that we need to be for the Lord. To go out and tell people this Jesus we love so much and loves us so much. And so I'm thankful that we all can do it. We've all been given. God's no respecter of person. He said he won't give no more than one than he will another. So we've all been equipped equally.
Yep.
And he told them, he said, don't take those things that you think you need. He said, because you don't need those things. Just rely on the Lord. And your Father will give you in the hour what you need to say. And he'll take care of it. So we just need to depend on the Lord and not lean to our, possibly not to our own understanding. And a lot of times we try to confuse things with our understanding of the way that what we think that we need, and with that, that convinces us that we don't have what we need to lead people to Christ. So we've got so many people today that are going down the wrong road of destruction, and we're not trying to guide them the other way. But we've got everything we need to do that.
And I think it even says in there that you may be thoroughly furnished. What does Romans 12:1 say? Y'all know that verse. I beseech you, brethren, by the mercies of God. What's it say? A living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, and that is your
Reasonable.
okay. What he said about the problem with that despising in Matthew 10, he told them, whosoever shall not receive you nor hear your words, when you depart out of that house or city, you shake the dust off your feet. It ain't on the blood ain't on your hands no more. And, you know, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. And if you read chapter 10, he warned them, you will find rejection. They're going to reject it. They're going to turn it away. They don't want to give up all the fun and the worldly things that they think is the pride of life and the lust of the flesh and all these things. They don't want to do that. But that's not my duty. My duty is not to make you accept it. My duty is to make sure you heard it. And that's a global, I call that a global responsibility. Global responsibility. That is everybody is responsible. That's why you have a testimony that you are to use. And if you can't, I've said this before, Steve said it, if you can't quote the Bible, that's not where this is supposed to be coming from. Where is it supposed to come from when you witness? From the heart, you believe. And that's where they're going to believe. And the blind man even said, I don't know what he looks like. All I know is that I was blind, and now I see. That's all he could say. He didn't even get to think about that. I don't know where he went. I don't know where he's at. All I can tell you is that I was blind. And I was like, all these things we go through, if we were like that woman at the well and we didn't go tell nobody, we didn't say a word. We just got our water, went back to the house, and kept our own little merry selves quiet at the house and kept our peace. Who would have missed out on going to heaven? Who would have missed out on going through those gates? You can't rely, and I don't mean this bad, this ain't nothing negative, but you can't rely on preaching on Sunday. Because some will not make it in this door in 2 days. Today's Friday. Some won't be alive by Sunday to make it through the door of a church to know how to get to heaven. They're not promised that. It's not going to be that. But that's the brevity of life, as we call it, of just how short it really is and the effect we have on others. Anybody else got something like that?
We were gonna have a Bible study at our house.
Uh-huh.
And I told John, I said, I'm gonna ask me our next door neighbor, I said, if I can move my car and you can move your truck over there so we can free up the driveway so people can get, we don't have that much room.
Uh-huh.
And so I went over and I knocked on the door and she opened the door and I said, hey, Nanny, we're gonna have a Bible study. Could I just move our cars over in your driveway? She said, yeah, I don't care, just go right ahead. And then I said, and you know what, you're welcome to join us, you can come over. And she slammed the doors, no. And I was standing there. I mean, she just went, no.
And slammed it.
And I went back and I told John, I said, well, I don't think she wants to come. And I told him what happened. And I told the people at the Bible study, I said, just pray for her because she doesn't go to church or anything. As it went, but she slammed the door in my face. And so next week when we had the Bible study, she knocked on my door and I went to the door and she said, here, I thought your people might like a dessert for the Bible study.
Yeah.
Because I said, okay, because I was like, we'll just pray for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and I was like, that's the first time I got the door slammed in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think she felt bad. So
She cried.
here, I thought some of your people might like a dessert. And I said, you're welcome to join us. She said, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. So she turned around, she walks out, and I go like, one day she might show up. But I go, that's the first time I go like, man, I'm just standing there going like, wow. Okay. I think that's enough.
That was clearly.
That was very clear.
That was clearly
And she can
explained.
be very blunt, can't she, John?
Yeah.
She can be very blunt. She just
Well,
said, no.
People have got, just from you inviting her,
Yeah.
she can conclude all these things in her head of why she ain't gonna care.
Yeah.
She don't even know what you do at your house. She don't even know what y'all study. Nothing. But the same thing, it's honestly the same as this class on Friday nights. There's people here at the church that will say, oh, no. That's a recovery ministry. No.
That was rejection, big time.
That's what people look at, and they don't know because they've never sat in this one time and seen anything about it. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's all Bible. Wait a minute, And that's really what happened. Robert Rogers did that for a while, and then they come and they're like, wait a minute, that's all Bible that he's teaching. But the thing is that I always ask that question of what are we afraid of? That Fear Factor show where they put them in that tank with the snakes and all that other crazy stuff. But in the reality of what are we really afraid of? Because, yeah, but and you think about it, it ain't hard. Some people won't talk to you in person, but you send them a message and they'll blow your phone up. Use it. There ain't nothing wrong about that, in my opinion. If you send them a message and said, I'm just sitting up here thinking about heaven, and they start asking you questions, the door is open. You see what I'm saying?
You said, I found out on a piece of paper, you wanted to write down earlier what we're afraid of.
Yeah.
First thing I put on my paper was snake.
Yeah.
Yeah, his daughter has to take care of it.
Yeah. She's the cancer. Yeah.
Well, I just think,
Based on that last time, not so I really with, then she was out of the garage.
My mom was left afraid of, she's waiting her fire bed out in the last year.
There's so many mothballs over there.
Yeah, I come out of the fire, got bitter, and, she just about left the squirrel. So she went down to basic yesterday, there's one down there in her basement. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She about lost it.
I didn't hear her screaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
She should have called me.
Yeah.
I'll kill it.
Yeah.
Now, a spider? I ain't gonna do a spider.
Yeah.
I'll do a snake, but not a spider.
Yeah. We've had services here before that we went all the way around the church house on the altar and let anybody want to tell their testimony tell it. And there's some in the churches anywhere. I've been in this multiple places. There's some in the churches that will not tell a testimony, will not say a word. What do they think runs through somebody's mind when they think, well, are they going? Have they really got it? You think about that. Then to be able, and it's not, that's what we got to get our minds away from, the fear of rejection and out of our minds that we cannot do it. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, is for you to say, I can't do it. I just can't do it. When you are the reason you're not doing it. You're in the way. That's all that answer is when we get down to it. Anybody else got something to add or thought of tonight? Rick's thinking really hard up here.
I was thinking, who said that? Are you so dumb that you can't give your
Testimony.
I was in the military with a guy that I would say he was dumb or wrong, but, and we went down the roll call, here's Jimmy, George, John, and what's your name, John? Oh, no, my name's not John, couldn't remember John's name.
So not even about on their birthdays, I'm like, huh?
Some people can't keep, or keep thinking, talk at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Some can't keep quiet.
Some of them have been put around on the spot, like especially
Yeah.
birthdays, I go to the drugstore and I go,
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
If
ask,
you ask their husband or their wife's birthday, they're like, don't tell her I don't know.
or if they ask you your phone number.
Yeah.
If you never call yourself, most people have a lot of trouble remembering their own number. Yeah. So that's another one they have trouble remembering. But we got to look past that fear of that. It's not really shamefulness. It's really, we're more ashamed of ourselves later when we fail to do it. We were supposed to. But we got to look beyond that fear of sitting down at the table and what I call shell the corn. As long as it's the book, there's no error from the truth. They either take it or they leave it. But I don't want it on my hands later of standing over their casket, knowing how many times I can count that I was in their presence or around them or with them or whatever the case was, and not one time did I mention the Lord's name. And now they're in the casket and they're dead. It ain't gonna happen now. It ain't gonna work. That's the wrong place to be in, but it happens a lot. It happens a lot.
There's a lot of people that I talk to every day that I go back and think she said something, or, but I do have a lot of people that come through that, you know, I'm praying for you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot more people that I could say something
It may not be 3 words. Don't get in your head, it's a book. Don't think you gotta get a sermon wrote out. You know, that's not what we're saying here. You have the ability to speak the words of life. And if it's 3 words at a time, until you get it out, however many times it takes, so be it. So be it. He told him at the gate, such as I have, I give thee. And he told that to the beggar at the gate. But what did the beggar ask for? Alms. He asked alms of the people that come to the gates. Was it Peter, James, and John? When they got to the gate, is that right? When they got to the gate, he said, I don't have that, but such as I have, I'll give it to you. You rise up, you walk. Just the same, the devil loves to flip our switch and cut us off. And just as Peter told the Lord, now don't do that. Don't be doing that. That's when the Lord says, you get behind me, Satan. You get behind me. Anybody else got anything they want to add to that?
Sometimes it's hard to give a good answer to some people that there's a question and answer before you get the answer out. My little brother said something to the fact you're going to heaven. Where's heaven at? Well, it's where, how many heavens are there? Which one are you going to? You know, you better try to think of, you know.
What you're going to say.
Yeah, whichever you want. Where God is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It didn't feel about that big because you didn't give him the answer right off. You sitting there thinking, well,
Just remember, the devil knows the book. Always remember that. The devil knows the book. He reads it. He knows what it says.
he got a long time to lose.
Yeah, but he don't have a testimony. That's one thing he don't have. Anybody else got anything to add to that?